Om Tare Du Tare Du Re Soha. Om Tare Du Tare Du Re Soha. Om Tare Du Tare Du Re Soha. Om Tare Du Tare.
Good evening, everyone. Those of you physically present and all of you online, good to be with you on this Wednesday evening. Hope you're all well. We are on the fifth point of the 8 verses of thought transformation, or fifth verse. And I will pop that up in just a moment. Just wanted to check in to see if anyone online may, or anyone physically here, might have had something come up from the 4th verse, anything that you wanted to discuss or bring up before we move on to the 5th one. Pause the usual few moments. 4th one was really easy, right? Okay. We will pop up to the 5th. So, for those of you who might be joining us, hadn't been here before, either online or in person, we've been doing the Approaching the Buddhist Path. This is a text that was put together by His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama, along with 10 Tibetan children. And they really unpacked the whole Lam Rim stage of the path to enlightenment for a Western mind. So we've been working our way through that, and we're on the Lojong verses, the mind training, 8 verses of thought transformation. All of these are seeking to cut through a self-grasping that really limits us and creates the conditions for samsara. So there we are, 5th one. When others, out of jealousy, mistreat me with abuse, slander, and so on, I will practice accepting defeat and offering the victory to them. From a conventional legal viewpoint, if we are wrongfully accused, we feel justified in reacting with righteous indignation. However, vehement outrage is not in our best interest. It simply stirs up an already contentious situation, forcing people to form factions and making genuine communication impossible. Accepting defeat does not mean that we make ourselves the world's doormat or accept responsibility for the wrongdoing of others. In some conflicts, capitulating could damage others or ourselves. Here, offering the victory to others means we don't have to have the last word in an argument or continually correct every small error others make. We can become more open and tolerant and less vindictive. When we are calm, we can try to clarify the situation, reach a resolution suitable to all. Some people like to quarrel and enjoy picking a fight. In such a situation, it's best not to bite the hook. When we refuse to argue, the squabble can't continue. Giving the victory to others means restraining ourselves when we want to dominate others physically or verbally. Seeking to control or have power over others does not bring happiness to ourselves or others in the long term. This is not to suggest that practitioners should simply yield to whatever harm or injustice is being inflicted upon them. In fact, according to the Bodhisattva precepts, we should respond to injustice with strong countermeasure, especially if there is danger that the perpetrator will continue acting destructively in the future, or if others will be adversely affected. We need to be sensitive to the situation and know when to let a situation pass and when to confront it. But whether we say something to the person or let it go, it is vital that our own mind harbors no resentment. That is what we are releasing when we offer up the victory. Okay, so actually quite a bit to unpack here, as with all of these. When others have jealousy, mistreat us with abuse, slander, and so on, I'll practice accepting defeat and offer the victory to them. Probably not a common way of being. And, at the core of this is it takes two to tango. One of the phrases that stuck out to me is this righteous indignation. And I was once, it was in San Diego at the Dharma Center there. Somebody talked about justified anger. Are we justified in anger? And when we really look at anger, do you like being angry? Is it beneficial? And there's arguments on both sides. I recall an interfaith gathering I was at in Ohio, where that was the topic. Is anger helpful or justifiable, or do we need it? And all the different faiths were there. And I basically said, no, anger is not necessary, which got a lot of people angry. And because, we're justified in our anger. And there's a big discussion. Does anger happen? Sure. Does it happen for a cause? Sure. Do I need to grow it? Do I need to nurture it? Probably not. Probably not very helpful. So this idea of justified anger is there's nothing that you can do to me that would justify me holding on to that anger and resentment and feeling the harm for years from now. There is something you can do to me that would harm me, and maybe anger arises in a moment. But how often do I sit here and perpetuate that anger, hold on to that resentment? Who's suffering at that point? I am. And it's not very skillful to resolve any situation. And so here it gets really tricky about all the damage that I get to create in my own life, continuing the seeds of anger, frustration, resentment, justifying it. We'll even say those things, right? I'll never forgive that person. I'm going to be miserable for the rest of my life. Is what I'm saying. I'm going to hang on to this pain. Something happened 20 years ago. I'm hanging on to the pain today. I'm pretty sure I don't want to suffer, and I deserve to not suffer. So when we forgive others, we're really giving ourselves permission to heal. I'm giving myself permission to stop suffering. They're not getting any better because I forgave them. I am. But I'm suffering when I ruminate and bring up to mind what they had done and all that harm. I was in a group last night, and a gentleman there, 48 years of anger at his father. And how, he's hoping before his father dies that he doesn't hate him. You think about, 4 decades plus decades of that. This verse is getting to this point where when someone harms me in some way, offering the victory is is allowing yourself to not take on the suffering. To not, yeah, this is inappropriate. I'm going to stand up and do what I can. This has been harmed. And so I want to make sure I don't get in a situation like that again. Take a corrective action. But when I get into that righteous indignation, now I'm perpetuating and nurturing and growing. I have a right to be angry. They shouldn't have done this. And I'm caught up in a whole dialogue of nothing but suffering. That's only in my mind. Rather than just recognize that that person is struggling in their own ways. They're trying to find happiness in a way that I feel is inappropriate. But they're going to have to live with what they do. And I can be harmed once for an hour, or I can be harmed once for 30 years. Which is righteous indignation. Also some idea that I'm better than somebody, instead of maybe a little more fortunate than someone. So this verse really is containing this idea of when someone does harm, I can dive into it, get all in it, perpetuate it, or not. And then, of course, there's the little parts, like how big a deal is it? So much of the things that we get upset or offended by or something in a moment, I don't even remember next week or in the next day. But when I ruminate on it, one of my analogies, I know some of you have heard me say before, is, when I get a resentment and I get into this real self-righteous, and resentment, and I think of it as baking a resentment pie. I'm putting in all the ingredients, righteous indignation and, all the validation and judgment, and mixing this up, and indignation, and, I'm just really in it, and I'm baking this beautiful resentment pie. And all the ingredients are there. And then when it's all freshly baked, I then share it with my friends. I call them up, tell them, what so-and-so did, give them a slice, give them a slice. And now we all have resentment, we're all in it. And I feel better, right? Because my friends are with me, got my back. How wrong that is. But what did I just really do? Did I solve a problem? Did I move towards solution? Or did I get a bunch of validation for my resentment and anger, so that the next time I'm in a situation like that, oh yeah, I should be angry and resentful. I'm getting the validation and the seeds of strengthening triggers in the world out there that are going to feed my anger and resentment. And so instead of actually taking a step to eliminate those triggers and seeds of anger, I'm planting them, growing them, nurturing them, strengthening them. Back when I was a school teacher, the advice from one of my mentors was, don't hang out in the teacher's lounge, because everybody was complaining in the teacher's lounge. Big school, inner city, which isn't what they're all doing, but it's just the metaphor of that. Put yourself in healthy situations. So, did I get a message? Oh, not yet. So let me just pause there and see if anyone has some questions or thoughts so far around this verse of when someone out of jealousy mistreats me, abuse, slander, and so on, how we offer the victory to them. It's a little trickier than just some of the things I've been sharing. And if you're online, just unmute, because I only see about 6 of you. 5.
I'm glad you sort of provided some commentary on that, because the way it's written is
You
kind
guys
of
are
right
good.
for misunderstanding.
Carla usually bails me out.
I'm bailing.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have my speaker on mute. Carla, it's not you, it's me. Story of my life.
I found that particular flow, or the phrase kind of right for misunderstanding the way it's written. So it's been very helpful that you've sort of provided some commentary on that. 'Cause I guess I never really quite understood what it was driving at before you cleared it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're giving us a pretty easy way out in this commentary. This is Dalai Lama and Tibetan children saying, yeah, we're talking to Westerners. Let's go easy. Because yeah, some other teachers would, really hit up around when we need to stand up. So it's pretty easy when we read this verse, as you're pointing out, how to take this in a way that wouldn't be very healthy. The point, as we make whenever we get in these 8 verses, is we're starting from a point of self-worth and value. Now, we already know we have Buddha nature. There's, we're in a strong sense of self. So what we're cutting through is the grasping, the egoic mind that is insecure and fearful, and creating a lot of the insecurities and fears in how we relate to others, where we're going to get angry, resentful, fearful. And, that's the mind that we're cutting through. When we have that stronger sense of self, that sense of, value, the understanding that I have Buddha nature, and that, what's really getting offended is my insecurities, fears, and resentments. And I don't think I need to defend those, right? I want to stand up for my fears and my insecurities. And don't you know who I am? I'm all this fear and insecurity. Don't treat me like that. So, but as pointed out, I think you're highlighting is offering the victory does not mean we're a doormat. Does not mean any of those things. It means we're committed to showing up and doing the healthy thing without all the fear and insecurity and attachment around what was done. We understand that everybody's acting out of confusion. Everyone's acting out of their own misguided ways of seeking happiness when they're doing harm. And so just understand they're confused, and they're going to have a lot of suffering in their life. So I don't need to take it personally. And so there's a different way of being when I don't have to take it personally that someone else is confused, misguided, creating harm, thinking that somehow that's going to bring them happiness. But I can address the behavior without getting caught up in all the drama. Yeah.
Thinking about that, I found it helpful to simply wait and pause and not get caught up in those insecurities that I have, and try to remember that that person that you're dealing with may be like that right now, but the next day they might not be like that, or the next day they may not be like that, by allowing myself to just have a little bit of space to reflect on it, on what I say, or if I'm going to act, or if I'm going to say anything. And perhaps that situation might completely change within a few days, a week,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it may be, that time frame. It might not, but trying to remember that person at that time when they wronged you or hurt you or whatever happened, that they're not always like that. And that was always really helpful with it. That's just that moment, or that's just that day. It's not necessarily who they are and how they're going to be.
Yeah,
Their lives.
skillful, very skillful. And I hope you guys online could hear that. Could you hear that? Somebody nod your head. Anybody? Okay, thank you, Richard. Like I say, I only see like a few of you. Yeah, wouldn't it be nice to not be reactive? How they're showing up in that moment. I've shown up in some bad moments. Yeah, and haven't been that way the next day. So yeah, just another option there is, when you're feeling that, to know that might be a sign to not engage. I think of it as picking a wound. You don't. If I don't pick it, maybe it'll heal. But kneeling, yes.
It was good for me because it was a reminder in my relationship with my wife. I'm definitely trying to win.
Ah,
And one silly quote that I've always heard, or kind of mantra, whatever, is quit while you're behind.
I like that. Quit while you're behind.
And I forget it a lot, but that was a good reminder for me.
Yeah. Quit while you're behind. I have not heard that one. I like that. Yeah.
I had a question, please.
Sure.
I guess I'm really struck by my tendency to turn events into almost like a transaction. Like I really formalize the event that happens against me, so it's almost as if a package was given to me, of this offense or harm. But so my question is, how do we know if we're successful with this? Is it just that your actions are non-combative or non-resistant or like that you're not engaging against this person, or is there an internal piece, or is there, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. So there's progress and success. And as pointed out, sometimes the success is I didn't react. I still might be inside, not peaceful at all. And, that's a real key success when I am not a prisoner of my feelings, where I have a choice about, as Rebecca pointed out, not engaging, even though maybe I'm triggered. So that's success. Okay, you're doing it successfully. Do no harm. And as Shanti Davis said, when it's all out the window, be like wood, just don't do anything till things calm down. And so we're not doing harm. And what we'll notice is as we engage in this, we might be more successful recognizing that when people are doing harm, how much they're suffering, how confused they are. And it's not personal. And so there's degrees and gradients of success, right? But the challenge, I think, this is always brought to this Western mind, is that we'll get mad at ourselves for getting mad, and not healthy. Having the feelings, having the frustration, the human experience is normal. Not reacting to it is the strength, or reacting less than I did is the strength. Catching it more often than I used to is the strength, is success. So we can even be successful, I think, in catching myself, taking it personal, sniping back, and catching myself a little quicker later that, oh, you know what, that wasn't very healthy. Maybe I apologize, or maybe I just choose to let it go now. Like I didn't go as far down as I did. So our gradients of success in this can be, I didn't yell at them for as long as I used to. I didn't, ruminate on it for 3 more days. It was only 1 day. All the way down to I felt angry, but I didn't react. To at some point, being able to actually be in the whole process without taking it personally and recognizing the suffering and being at a point where it's not personal, they're just in their own struggle. And, so those gradients can go all the way from not yelling for as long as I would have, all the way down. And so the journey is progress. Is that helpful there? Oh, you're probably still muted. Sorry, Julia.
Yes, and it sort of leaves room for needing to work with your anger and have the challenge of not just ruminating about it.
Yeah, because if we're just stuffing it, we're in the wrong direction. So that's the second point. Thanks for continuing that thought process. If I'm taking it personally and I'm just stuffing my anger, I'm just damaged. And so this is recognizing, trying to cut that short, recognizing, there's, angers are rising, but that's not who I am, and I'm not angry. I'm experiencing anger. And can I bring some more clarity around my skillful response? And that's for me, I think, something that is so hard to do for so many is to give yourself credit for improvement, because it's so easy to ruminate and then get frustrated at myself for ruminating. I'm just compounding rumination as opposed to, okay, ruminating, let me let go of that and know that that's okay. It's okay that that's happening. But stuffing would bring it to the point of we're not offering the victory, and maybe there is something that needs to be said, something that needs to be done in a healthy way. And so sometimes we can hide from confrontation in the guise of spiritual practice, where I don't say something that would be helpful, appropriate, for fear of a reaction or response, when in fact it's just kind of the healthy thing to share and let people have their feelings. So it's tricky business, but stuffing is not ever going to be helpful.
Two points that are made in the text concern control, the desire for control, and how that desire does not bring happiness to ourselves or to others, trying to control other people. And the second one was, basically what we've been talking about, that it is vital that our own mind harbors no resentment, which just causes further suffering for ourselves.
Yeah, key points. Thank you, Mark. So one of the things that we can learn about ourselves is, if it's verbal, why am I so offended by what someone else may say or think in a particular moment about me? And, we have those analogies that we're taught all the time. 10 people come out and tell you how wonderful you are. 11th person says, I think you're a jerk. And then I'm going to listen to that all day long. So-and-so called me a jerk. everybody else was, good with me. And, that's the dynamic to pay attention to is often these ways that we feel slighted are really coming from our own insecurity and wondering, why am I giving that much credit? And then the wisdom of our practice is to know, just sitting with the sensation of insecurity and notice that how I attend to it's either going to feed it or even let it dissipate. When I recognize that someone is treating me in a way that reflects how they are in a moment, instead of who I am, there's a whole different perspective than if I recognize that people are just struggling and how they're treating me has a lot to do with them. And then there's the other part. Sometimes they have a little bit of right in what they're pointing out about me. That hurts. That dig hurts. There's some truth in that. There's some truth there. And there's a little bite. So that's also something that can be really helpful at recognizing that what's being shared might be something I could improve upon in my own life.
And sometimes the recognition is that I've done the same thing to others at some point in my life.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's that old saying, when you're pointing a finger out at someone else, 3 are pointing back at you. Yeah. My own experience, sometimes the things that have, bothered me about others and that are judged in some way are things about myself that I've really worked on really hard. So they were, part of my life. And then others, are doing that, and I found that to be fascinating because it's something I really didn't like about me, and I worked really hard on it. And these other things, as you point out, want to win or having the last word or knowing it should be like this. That's going to be a part of the struggle here. Wanting justice to be done, which doesn't mean you don't tolerate injustice, but we do our part in the healthy way. It's without all the drama. It's without all the labeling, others as these evil beings, and just recognize they're based on their conditioning, based on what they've gone through in their life, based on their way of being, and all the conditions that have ripened in our societies and so forth. There's causes for all this, and it's messy. So maybe coming from a place of gratitude that, I have had more support and help in understanding true causes of happiness and well-being. Then, for me, my approach is seeing others as just confused. And their confusion, they're creating harm in their lives and others. And then I have compassion. And with compassion, I am much more capable of responding in a healthier way than I am out of anger. Anger, very limited. Compassion, a lot more ways and space, ways to respond, space to maneuver, and then opportunities for skillful interventions and resolving of situations. have a few more minutes here. So. Thing is always, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking, do you think there's a reason why they use the word jealous or jealousy? I can't remember which. Because there could be a whole bunch of different reasons why somebody is mistreating you.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just about to comment on that just as you spoke. That's always stuck out of my head. Now, when you translate from different languages and Tibetan and so forth to English, even these same 8 verses, you'll see worded a little differently here or there. But jealousy is always the word they use. And I actually asked that specific question to Tenzin Priyadarshi. What's the deal with jealousy? And I don't really remember the answer. But yeah, it's great that you brought that up, because it does. And the general memory that I have is he was saying that so much of, so it's so common, it's such a common motivator to slander and to harm, jealousy arising from insecurity and so forth. It's a real common, regular, deep affliction. And that's where people are going to be motivated, to harm others or to bring them down. Jealousy is going to be a predominant motivator. But yeah, in preparing for tonight, I read that and I was trying to remember exactly what he said, because I had mulled that around for years, and I finally had this great teacher, and I asked him. I have it recorded somewhere, and but it was along those lines that is a very specifically strong motivator for this type of action, and a real damaging one. Jealousy is one of the 3 non-virtuous actions of the mind. So the 10 non-virtues. We have 3 of the body, 4 of speech, 3 of the mind, and that coveting and envy, that kind of jealousy, is listed specifically as one of the 3 main non-virtues of the mind. Ill will being one, and jealousy or envy, covetousness. So it's a big one, and it's one that we don't recognize as jealousy too often, and even in our own minds. So something to really be aware of is how we compare ourselves with others, how we perceive ourselves, and how we often will seek validation to be above someone or better than someone. And in these places, you're going to have different dynamics of jealousy and a striving to win and a striving to be above. And that's also coming from their side. So a really strong dynamic that jealousy is directly related as the most common motivating force for this type of activity.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Just pondering that. If I was a good teacher, I'd remember what he told me. Yeah, stuck with me.
Perhaps you've already said it, but in the rare instance when I'm able to let them win, I don't have to talk. And when I don't say anything and offer them the victory, they don't know. They can go on with their life, and I have surrendered for all means. Thanks.
Yeah, well put. Yeah, Rebecca mentioned something along those same lines. And here's the thing about victory to that. What I'm attending to becomes my reality. So coming back to even what Julia brought up. what I'm attending to, if I'm attending to this resentment, well, guess what? I'm going to have some resentment. If I'm attending to a million other things I can be attending to in this moment, then I'm not. So that's the key point here as well, is what I attend to becomes my reality. So if I'm really focusing on this one thing, ruminating, justifying, that's where my head's going to be. That's where the emotions are going to come up. And that's going to be the experience. But if I direct my attention a little differently and go, okay, that happened. There's all these other things happening in my life that are, quite precious. And if we take this mind training to its core, back to the first verse, then we recognize that that person is helping me see my mind, helping me see my insecurity. They are helping me on my path of liberation. They're really quite helpful. So if I attend to it that way, now this is incredible benefit. So what I'm attending to and how I'm attending to it is going to be just transformative. So when I think somebody's doing me wrong, maybe I can recognize they're showing me a lot about myself and helping me grow in this path. But we may not be there yet. But if we don't say something, maybe we'll get there the next day, right? And that's why it's so important to have, our time here together and time in the morning, time for reflections, this is not our natural thought pattern. So taking some time to recognize this is helpful to us. Someone, challenging my sense of self is very helpful for me. Recognizing how damaging anger is in my life, very helpful. These are opportunities to nurture my mind, my attitudes, my capacity to show up for life, because it's going to be messy and people are confused, and not take it personally. Talking about it, meditating on it, going out there and trying it. When we look outside in the world, I'm looking out the window at the moment, for those of you online. There's a whole world of people out there that are struggling and suffering in ways unknown to me. And they're in their own prisons. So what greater opportunity for us to cultivate compassion and recognize all this messiness arises from greed, anger, misperception, 3 poisons. And a small few of us have been given the opportunity to free ourselves. And that does not make us better than anyone. It makes us more fortunate than many. And if I can remember that daily and nurture that attitude, that will grow within my heart and mind as I interact with others. It just takes time and practice, which is different than making the resentment pie. For the record, I'm thinking of cherry pie right now, in case anyone was curious. Been going to cherry for a while. All right. So what a gift it is to be here with each other and for each other, an opportunity to cultivate our hearts and minds to engage in these wisdom teachings. And the merit and the wisdom of these collective efforts we get to dedicate for the benefit of all others who are struggling in this world, and for our own continued spiritual growth, so that we can be of ultimate benefit to all beings. With that in mind, let us dedicate this merit and wisdom. By this merit may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu